Hello there everyone, and this is Resident Weavile, and today I'll be reviewing the Call of Cthulhu Scenario, House of Memphis. House of Memphis was printed in the Call of Cthulhu Mansions of Madness Volume 1 by Chaosium, and this is a nice little book here. It has 5 different scenarios in it. It's sort of a reprint of an old booklet called Mansions of Madness as well, and it actually has 2 of the original scenarios reprinted and revised with 3 new ones. And House of Memphis is one of those 3. So, here you go. House of Memphis. This is a neat little scenario. It is set in 1927 Boston, and the players are tasked with looking for a missing magician named Memphis the Great. So, I'll be going over my thoughts of this. I have run this for my players quite recently, actually, and we quite enjoyed it. I read this one and immediately thought, this is definitely something I want to play through. It seems like a lot of fun. So I'll be giving my thoughts on this, a little review of what my players thought on it, and some tips maybe to help. So anyone who's interested in playing this, I would not suggest watching this right now, but check it out. It's in this book. You can buy it from the Chaosium website. You can buy it on Amazon. I believe you can buy PDF copies of it as well. So if you're interested, check it out. Read through it, run through it with your players if you're a keeper, and then come back for my thoughts if you want. So now everyone who's still here, I'll start reviewing the scenario. So the setup's quite fun. There's 2 different ways that you can do it. Your players can either be contacted by the lawyer of Memphis's estate, or they can be helping through a little less savory options through criminal connections. And you can choose either of these setups, but the doesn't matter which one you do, the players can get some information from the other side depending on what they do. So, a little backstory on what happened. Memphis the Great was a famous magician, and he began to have some really strange things people were noticing after a trip he took to Bhutan. And he had a apprentice named Harold Hawkins, and they grew pretty estranged from each other. And Hawkins is actually going to be married to Memphis's daughter Ingrid. Now Memphis has gone missing, and the players are going to look into what has happened to him. So if you as the keeper decide they're going to go with the lawyer route, if you're using pre-existing characters and they're known problem solvers, maybe they're not criminals, I would go with this one. So the setup is that they meet with the lawyer of Memphis's estate, and he's going to tell them what's been going on. Memphis has been missing for about a month and a half. No one knows where he is, and he's just a bit worried that about where he is, obviously. But there was a break-in in Memphis's house recently. A bunch of robbers broke into the house, and they were all found dead inside of the house, mysteriously. And he wants the players to go there, look around, make sure everything's all right, so that when Memphis comes back, he's not going to have any issues with his house having been broken into and things are missing or anything like that. So he's going to give him a little bit of information, and he's going to give him a key to the house. That's important because if they don't go with the lawyer, they're going to have to break into the house somehow themselves if they start with the criminal option, if that's what you want them to do. He'll also bring in the housekeeper. Is he the housekeeper? I believe he's like the groundskeeper. And he can give them a little bit of information. And he also gives them some information about the police inspector who's in charge of the case. So later on, if they would like to speak to him for more information, the lawyer here, Pickering, he can help them set that up. He'll also give them some tickets to go see Harold Hawkins' magic show. So the players can go see that and see some of the magic that Harold Hawkins is putting on that he's learned from Memphis himself. It says that the tickets are for the next night. I decided to set it to that night because I did not want my players going right to the house. That's something that is pretty common if your players are a little bit ambitious, maybe. That might not be the right word, but it's often not great to just have them go right to the place that they're supposed to investigate in Call of Cthulhu, because it can make some things happen too early. So I decided to move up the show to that night, so they would go to the show first and get some extra information before they went to the house. So you may want to do that if you're the keeper, if you want to do the same, try to keep your players from just going gung-ho right into the mansion right away. So at this show, they're going to see some normal magic tricks at first. Hawkins is going to bring some people up on stage. If one of the players wants to be one of the volunteers on stage, let them do so, and they'll get an extra bonus or a reduced difficulty to make a check to notice that Hawkins kind of freezes up for a moment in the middle of the show, oddly out of nowhere. It doesn't seem like he has any reason to do so. It's a little bit odd. And then as the show goes on, he's going to do some very strange tricks, like he's going to put up these two boxes on either end of the stage. He's going to open them up. They're going to glow, and he's going to jump through one and immediately come out the other end. No one has any idea how he did this at all. And then he's going to do that levitating trick where he levitates somebody up in the air. It's a trick with some like wires and a trick hoop to go through them to make it look like there's nothing there. But he made a mistake while rigging it, and the lady falls to the ground and she's badly injured, and the show stops abruptly. Now, it does say that the players, if they offer to provide some medical help, if they can convince the stagehands and the supervisor about that they can get up on a stage, help the woman, and then maybe talk to Hawkins later. My players did want to go up there, and one of them did have a pretty good medicine skill, and he kind of just lied and said he was a doctor. So try to push your players to do that in some way. Maybe have a character that they, maybe if they're established characters, there's a character that they know there that knows one of them has some first aid or medical experience and tells them, oh, you should go help them up there. Definitely try to get your players to go up there in some way if they're not interested, because they're going to lose out on a lot of information from Hawkins if they don't. So once they go up there, they get the chance to talk to Hawkins after all this, and he'll take them into his dressing room, and they can have a little bit of a chat with him. He can give them some information about, oh, I would have never made that mistake, and that sort of thing. And they might get the chance to notice he keeps looking at this little locker he has in his room. And inside, if they manage to get into it, they'll find a Mythos tome and a gun that he has keeping in there. So they can keep that Mythos tome for themselves, read through it, get the spells, get the Cthulhu Mythos ratings out of it. It is going to take quite a while to do a full study of it, so even a skim I don't think they'll be able to get through in the course of this scenario, because the study time is 8 weeks, so even the skim, that's a little bit, I don't think they'd be able to do that, but it's a nice little thing for them to have for later on in their adventures. Ingrid, his fiance, the daughter of Memphis, can also show up at this point and give them a lot more details. So if the players went through the lawyer route to get here, and she is made aware that they're trying to help in what's going on, she'll definitely be encouraging and try to help them out any way she can. She'll give them where she's staying at a hotel so that they can contact her and get some more help from her later on if they want. And that's just a good way to have a little ally for them to have. If they didn't, she is going to need to be convinced that they're genuinely trying to help in this situation. So before I get too far, let's go with the other route to take here, the criminal route. Essentially, it's going to take place in a speakeasy that the players can go to if they go with the lawyer route anyways. And basically, they're going to be hired to look into what was going on about these criminals that broke in here and they mysteriously wound up dead. That's what they're looking into here instead. Basically, one route, you want to look into why the house is broken into, make sure everything's okay. The other route, it's because the criminals were found dead. And, the criminal underworld of Boston here is kind of curious about that. So, after the show, if they do that, next good thing to do is probably to go to the house, or maybe they want to do some research on Memphis himself. And there's some other things they can do for that. They can go to the library or find some newspapers, and they'll get some information about Memphis's past, especially his trip to Bhutan that seems to have changed everything. Now, in reality, Memphis is, he's dead, but he's not exactly dead. Hawkins actually killed him, and Memphis ended up becoming this sort of spirit possessing his own house. And what he's trying to do here is he's trying to take a new body, specifically Hawkins. So his goal is to get Hawkins to his house and then take over his body, and now he can live on as Hawkins and get revenge on his apprentice who had murdered him. And he's very invested in Yog-Sothoth, who we ran into at Bhutan, and that's how he has all these amazing powers. And Hawkins has those two little boxes he has are basically gates that he has set up that he can go to one place to another. And PCs can find some of this information out about some of the strained relations, the trip, and that through those newspapers, through the library visits. But there's also some other things they can do. They can find out about this restaurant that hosts these meetings of local magicians that they like to get together and discuss things together. And this was a lot of fun for my players. The restaurant's called Nelson's Restaurant. They went there earlier in the day, and I had Nelson, the proprietor, be very gruff with them. They had a lot of fun interacting with him, and eventually he let slip that, oh, there's this meeting of magicians there. They don't really like anyone else coming in, but if you show up, you buy some food, and you try to mix in, I'm sure it'll be okay. Just don't cause any sort of mess. So they decided to come back when the next meeting was at night and get some more information there. And then they went off to the house. So the house. This is probably the funnest, the best part of this scenario here. So the house, it is, well, haunted by Memphis's spirit. And there's these little descriptions in each of the rooms that are called cheap scares. So as they go throughout the house, you'll give them the descriptions of the rooms as they're poking around. Maybe they can find some things. But if you want, you can add the little cheap scare there. They really shouldn't have any sanity loss, and it also recommends don't overdo it, which I definitely agree with. Don't overdo these. Add one here or there as to make a little bit of a creepy atmosphere. Like, oh, they're in one room and there's this internal window looking into the little center area with the spiral staircase going upstairs. They're in this one room and they suddenly see a shadow like go up the stairs randomly, but they don't hear anything. Or maybe the statue, it looks like its eyes are following them or something like that. Little things like that. And if you want to be really mean to your players, there's some descriptions for ones that say sanity blasting horror, where it's something that they'll see and it's going to cause quite a big deal of sanity loss, and it's going to be a pretty scary experience for the players. My favorite one here is if they're at the very top of the staircase and they look down, you can do a cheap scare where it's sort of like that bit in Vertigo where the camera extends in and out. So they'll look down, it looks like the whole like floor is moving up and down towards them. But if you want, you can do a sanity blasting horror where they look down and at the bottom of the floor, all the way at the first floor, instead it's this huge eye of something that looks right at them and they have no idea what it is, and it causes a whole bunch of sanity loss. I think that's a lot of fun. So as they're looking around, they'll find some little things here or there about what Memphis was up to. They'll see all these posters of him with his assistant, who used to be his wife, but then his wife eventually left him, and he got a new assistant named Josephine Lynch. And they'll notice after a certain date, she's in all the posters with him instead. Now, she can play a pretty big role in this scenario here if the keeper needs the players to be pushed somewhere. She's sort of an antagonist, where she's actually stolen Memphis's car, which is missing, as they'll soon discover. And maybe they'll see the car and think it's Memphis and go chase her down or something like that. The keeper can add that to add a little bit of excitement. And what I did is I had her aware that Memphis was possessing the house, and she was working with him to try to get Hawkins to the house. So the PCs were getting too close, and she was trying to antagonize them a little bit. So I did that thing I suggested earlier. They saw the car, they thought it was Memphis, and then she led them on this big chase, and eventually at the end she helped Memphis and his spirit fight the PCs and Hawkins. Now when the players are exploring the house, they're going to find this puzzle box in one of the storage rooms. It's going to require a check to get into, and if it has failed, it's going to shoot this little poison needle at one of the players, and it's going to cause some debilitation to them for a couple of hours or so. This ended up leading to some humorous situations with my group, where one of them was hit by this needle and he was delirious for a while and kind of passed out, and he ended up becoming this huge burden to them for a while, because that's when Josephine got them into this little car chase, and somehow he ended up being the one driving the car at one point because of some things that they were trying to do, and he just crashed it right into a telephone pole because he thought he was driving a train or something like that. Play it up a little bit if your players enjoy that sort of role play to add a bit of humor to things. Now, when they do open the puzzle box, it's going to have these little orbs in them. There's 7 of them. They're called the plane orbs, and what these things do is they can suppress the magic that Memphis deals with, all this magic related to Yog-Sothoth, and it's going to glow when it gets in the presence of this sort of thing. It won't glow near Josephine, it states, but during areas of activity in the house, it's kind of light up a little bit. Now, this is supposed to clue the players into these orbs being quite beneficial to them. If they smash the orbs in an area where the magic is being used, it's going to negate the effects for a certain amount of time, and smashing more of the orbs will multiply this effect. Now, the one problem I have with this is that my players didn't know what to do with these until the very end. I even had one of the magicians at the meeting they went to tell them what they were, kind of, to clue them in on it. I had him tell them that these are some sort of anti-magic items from Bhutan they made in a ritual, something like that. And that was to help clue them in a little bit, but they still didn't know what to do with them until the end when someone just decided to throw one of them. So I definitely add some sort of clue on what these can do, or at least what they're capable of, because your players might have no idea what these can do. If they do have a high enough Cthulhu Mythos skill, maybe just give them a check and then they'll know what they can do. But I give them a little help with that, otherwise they might just forget about the orbs or have no idea what they're going to do, and that's a bit of a waste, because they're a very useful tool toward the end. So they'll get these orbs and get some more information around the house, but right away, I don't reveal everything right away. Have them look around the house, have them get scared a little bit, find some things, and then hopefully they'll go to the restaurant for the meeting, or they'll go meet Ingrid, something like that. Now, upstairs in the attic, there is one thing to note. If anyone goes in the attic, there's a symbol in there that is a spell that's going to cause a bunch of problems for the players. This ended up happening to a couple of mine. There's the symbol, and if they go through there, they have to make a power roll. If they fail, they feel faint, and then they might even fall on the stairs and take some damage. Now, the thing is that it's an evil eye ward, that's what it says, and what it does is for a whole day, their chances of succeeding at a luck roll are halved, and all of their guns jam on a 75% or more, which can be pretty bad. In this scenario, it's likely they're not going to be fighting with guns at all, but if it does come up, please keep that in mind, because that is going to cause the players some problems. Now, once they find everything out, they figure out that, Memphis, he might not be dead, actually. He's probably maybe in the house somewhere. They'll find some journal entries that suggest that maybe he is, kind of living in the house somehow. Once they put this together, Harold Hawkins is going to get called to the house in this sort of zombie-like trance, where Memphis is actually kind of having this effect over him ever since he's been killed. That's why he froze up at his performance. So he's going to get called to the house in the zombie-like state, and then Memphis is going to try to take over his body, and Hawkins and him are going to get into this sort of magic duel with each other, while the players are, if they're present, they'll watch it in horror as they're slinging these spells at each other, and Hawkins is slowly going to lose because Memphis is just a ghost, and he can't be harmed by almost anything that Hawkins is doing. And if they don't know to use the orbs to try to weaken Memphis, Hawkins can actually suggest this to them right at the end. I, again, do suggest give them a hint at what they could do beforehand, but that's a last resort option that you can provide to them. Now, Memphis, he can manipulate the house by spending his magic points, and that's what the orbs are going to suppress. He can sort of warp the walls and attack them with moving things around the house, that sort of thing. Now, if they find this book of Ibon in the house that Memphis had, they'll learn this spell that, there's some rules in here about how to learn the spell quickly. And if they do so, it's going to bring Memphis back into the physical world, but because he doesn't have a body, it's going to destroy him. Now, the players have to do this. It acts as a sort of ritual. It's going to take multiple people and lots of magic points to reduce the amount of time that this takes, because the base time of it is 30 minutes. And within those 30 minutes, if one person tries to do it, there is no way Hawkins is going to survive and Memphis is going to win, take over his body, and then probably kill the PCs with that. So this spell is their best chance to kill him without much of a conflict. Though, if they're able to suppress the magic enough, they might be able to kill him through some other means of using spells and that sort of thing if they have any, like Hawkins has. So do keep that in mind. Now, there's some certain ways that the ending can go. You can have Ingrid show up, maybe try to assist the PCs a little bit because you followed Hawkins. Hawkins is going to put up a barrier to protect everybody for a certain amount of time. So it's really going to be up to the PCs how this goes. Do they know the spell? Are they going to use it? Do they have the orbs? Are they going to use those? So just read through it. You're going to have to play some of it by ear as it goes along. In my case, the PCs wasted a lot of the orbs in one single room. The orbs only suppress the magic in the room that they're used for the most part. And then they jumped out the window and went outside, and someone finally decided to start doing the ritual, and they just left Hawkins inside. They actually finished it pretty quickly. They used enough magic points to just do the ritual within about 1 minute. And I decided that Hawkins and Memphis is going to be pretty close, but they managed to do the spell, and the whole house settled down. And then Hawkins comes outside, he's like bleeding from his eyes and everything like that, he's screaming, and he passes out. And then they wake him up, they give him some first aid to heal him up a little bit. And I played this off as a sort of one-shot within a campaign, where the players were playing as people from the past, because we were playing in modern day. And I wanted to give them a sort of a fun, ambiguous horror movie ending. So as they were driving away, bringing Hawkins to the hospital, he kind of like woke up and looked out the window and gave this little evil smirk to them. So depending on if you're playing this as a one-shot, you can probably be a little bit more lethal to your players with how Memphis goes about attacking them, or maybe if Hawkins is killed and taken over. So that's how it ends. It's a really fun little scenario, especially if your characters are into characters and players that are into like the creepy magic and occult sort of stuff. One of my players actually realized halfway through, he said, "Hey, wait, isn't this kind of this monster house? I bet that's what it is. I bet he's the house or something like that." So your players might catch on a little early, but that's part of the fun of it. So I hope my tips were a bit helpful here. So yeah, give them a bit of hints about the orbs. Don't make them go right to the house. Maybe move up the magic show a little bit. Definitely remind them that Ingrid can be pretty helpful to them, or maybe some criminals in the mob if they go that route. Keep all of that in mind. Also, try to make sure that they find the orbs or the book, at least one of them. Find some way to give them an out to the end, because if not, they're going to have no way of fighting Memphis, and they're going to lose for sure. So with all of that in mind, I do hope you check this out, House of Memphis. It's a really fun, short little scenario. It only took me one session, about maybe 5 hours at the most. If your players want to play into it a little bit more, it might take 2 sessions. If you play a bit shorter sessions, about 3 hours or so. So do keep that in mind, but it is playable in 1 session, and I definitely recommend you check this out. So this has been my first Call of Cthulhu Scenario review for House of Memphis. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next time. This is Resident Weavile.